Hey, it's Eddie K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S23 FE, one of Samsung's latest phones, available at Best Buy now, and one that kind of takes parts from other Samsung phones and puts them together here. Samsung did not have an FE phone in 2022, so they brought it back in 2023. So skipped a year, now brought it back. Now why? Well, I think it's because, in my estimation anyway, is to offer an alternative that would be separate, or at least aside or parallel or lateral to the existing S23 lineup. So we have the flagship S23 lineup, and this is supposed to be part of it, but more so as a cost-effective option. So if you were to line them all up, there's four of them, this would be the more affordable of the four. It takes elements of some of those phones and puts them in here. So you'll have, for example, the screen is in the middle, so it's a 6.4-inch display, which is just a tad bigger from the S23, but also a tad smaller from the S23 Plus. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor is actually not the same as those models. They use the Gen 2. The cameras actually are pretty much the same with the exception of the telephoto lens. Everything else pretty much lines up. And the design is obviously different because you have bigger bezels along the screen, and the edges are different, the corners feel different, the phone is a tad heavier, and then obviously you have the glossy background too. So there's a number of design elements that have changed, but again, that's standard for an FE phone. It's typically what Samsung does when it launches a phone like that. But at the same time, there's not anything really exceptional about the phone at all. This isn't a phone that stands out for any particular reason. It doesn't have a feature that I can really point to and say this is something that is unique or exclusive to this device. It doesn't do any of that, and that's from the software side as well. So this will run One UI and Android the same way really that those phones do. The screen has an adaptive refresh rate. A lot of the features that you would expect Samsung to offer, including on the camera side, by the way, are available here. Now, not the Ultra, so the S23 Ultra is separate. You're not going to see any of the features that are exclusive to that in here. This phone largely borrows from the S23 and the S23 Plus, but especially more leaning towards the S23, which explains why it's sort of at the more affordable end of that totem pole. For me, I think using this device, I wasn't surprised by anything, nor was I overly impressed by anything in particular. I say that because I realized as I used it who it's probably for. So, for example, if you're upgrading from an S20, an S10, or even an A series phone, I can kind of understand why you'd want to maybe you'd be curious about this. But if you have an S21, S22, or something like that, this is not. I don't think this is the route to go. Maybe if you have an S21 FE, you could make that case, but you could also wait to see what Samsung does with newer models as well. So the camera is another example of what I'm talking about because it's so similar to the S23 that it shoots pretty much the same way. There isn't a dramatic difference in output, so the photos that you would get on that phone would be more or less the same here. That's good news for an FE, by the way, because you're paying less for this phone, but you're ultimately getting the same images for the most part. So that's always a good thing. And I was pretty happy with the photos. It's what I expected from Samsung in this range. So I don't think you're going to be really disappointed with the kind of images you take. You'll find that maybe there's some discrepancies as far as results being in low light and things like that, but for the most part, Samsung software does work here. So you're going to get, I think, pretty good results for the most part. Same with video. I think video is kind of the same story. So I wasn't overly, I think I got what I expected from the camera. And so if you're used to shooting with Samsung phones, I think you'll probably feel the same way after shooting with this too. Battery life is one of those things that, again, I measured my expectations here because I had a feeling that it was going to be all right, but not great. And that's exactly where this lands. You will get through a full day, but don't be surprised if at some point in the evening you got to charge this thing, you got to plug it in and charge it back up. It's not that the battery is terrible or great, it's just adequate at best, I would say. You can definitely stretch it out a little further if you're using some battery saving techniques, like maybe you don't want the screen to go as bright, things like that. But generally speaking, with mixed usage, so if you're doing streaming, social media, messaging, browsing, all the stuff that you would normally do on the phone, and you're doing it all day, there is that chance that you'll probably get home at the end of the day and see like, okay, there's like 35% left. So I'm probably gonna have to plug in at some point in the evening. And that was the way it was for me, and I imagine that's probably how it's gonna be for you. Of course, there's no charger in the box, as is customary now for Samsung phones. So, but you can use any other charger as long as it's up to 25 watts, and it does charge relatively quickly, especially up to for the first 30 minutes. So at least you're good there. And it also supports wireless charging too. So if you have a wireless charger, just plop it down and you're good to go. So I've already pretty much summarized who I think the phone is for, or at least what my experience was like. And so you can, I think, gauge for yourself whether you think it's the best fit for you. But for me, that wraps up my review of the Samsung Galaxy S23 FE. It's available now. You can read more about it by just clicking the link below. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.